So hello and welcome everyone to our Peer Entrepreneur Speaker Series. This month's speaker is Lamarr Lewis. Hi, Lamarr.
Hello, how are you? How are you?
Good. So Lamarr is a peer entrepreneur who lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He's got over 7 years experience in running his own business, which is called Lewis Family Consulting. Specializing in consulting and coaching community-based nonprofits, public health clinics, and behavioral health programs. He's described as a change agent, servant leader, and holistic health and wellness advocate. Lamarr's philosophy in life is no losses, only wins and lessons. And I have reviewed that statement quite a few times since I first met him. I really like that, and I'm trying to include that in my own mantra. No losses, only wins and lessons. One thing that is important for you to know about him is he believes in the divinity everyone has within themselves. He feels his greatest accomplishments in life are being a father and a husband. In his spare time, Lamarr enjoys working out, writing scripts, and analyzing movies with family and their dog Zulu, who may make an appearance on the screen at some point this hour. We don't know because Lamarr is having to work from home
right. We'll follow up.
Pandemic reasons.
Indeed.
And he's even got his children home from school because of the pandemic. So we are all just doing the very, very best we can. Indeed. And that's all anyone can ask, right, Lamarr?
You are 100% right. We just had that lovely chat. Indeed.
All right. Well, so let's get started, Lamarr. Can you tell us a little bit about your peer story?
Well, first, thank you, for having me and for reaching out. They say when you do these kind of talks and stuff like that, like you never know who's listening and who may reach out to you. And the fact that you all reached out to me a whole nother state away means a lot. And I appreciate the opportunity just to kind of share a bit and hopefully help other people on their journey. Secondly, I don't know who that person is in that biography you just read. That doesn't sound anything like me.
But it is.
I know. I'm like, oh, he does all that? Well, that guy sounds pretty interesting. But in all seriousness, a little bit about me, I guess my story. I've been, we all been through a lot, in our lives. And I feel like, around 2019, I was kind of moving on autopilot. I had been going to my therapist at that time for, 4 or 5 years. And, I was like accomplishing different things, degrees and licensures and certifications and get married and getting promotions and all this stuff was going on in my life. And I just didn't feel excited about it. It wasn't happy about it. Wasn't motivated about it. And so I was in, and I started going to my therapist actually when I was in a master's program, before I became a dad. I was kind of like stressing about, there was a lot of financial stuff going on, wasn't making any money. I'm in school, and my daughter's, her birthday is Saturday. So I'm like, this is, November, December, right? Christmas coming. My son is 9, he wants Jordans. I'm just stressed out. And I started going to therapy because we got free sessions in my grad program. And so fast forward to 2019, that's like 2014. So 2019, I've been going, and my therapist is kind of like, what you do for fun? What's your coping skills? What's your self-care? Like all the stuff, I ask other people who I work with. And I was like, work. That's pretty much what I do. I work out, which is still kind of work. And I just work some more and I take a nap and I work again. And she was kind of like, that's not normal. That's not healthy. That's not good. And she, you know, basically suggested that I go see a psychiatrist. And my first kind of thought was like, I'm not crazy. I don't need to go see a psychiatrist. Now, mind you, I've been working in this field for now 20 years, and I've been working with people with severe mental illness for half of that. And I would tell them, you know, hey, man, you're not, you know, crazy, and you're not this, you're not that. Like, you're, you know, all this recovery language that we're taught. And here I am when a suggestion for me to go see a psychiatrist and potentially get help for what I'm dealing with. That was my initial reaction. And that kind of, you know, made me reevaluate a lot of things. You know, I always kind of been skewed to the kind of anxious, neurotic, you know, low mood kind of presentation. Like, I've always just kind of been like that. And I never really put anything on it because I spent so much time helping other people, not realizing that I was using work to cope. You know, I was using work to help me get through the struggles I was having, because it took my mind off whatever I was dealing with. You know, having an extensive trauma history, you know, being diagnosed with depression at that time once I saw the psychiatrist, and then realizing that I have a diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, that I didn't know I had on my father's side of the family, because I don't know my father's side of the family like that. So struggling through these different things and not really knowing, and then finally getting that answer kind of helped me to put things in place that would help me just not just survive or struggle through life, but thrive. You know, help me put self-care measures in place, like not working out for a goal, but just working out because it makes me feel good. You know, sometimes I don't need to just go and do a CrossFit class and go see my boxing coach, then go run 5K. Like, I can't do that now anyway, but there was a time in life where I would do stuff like that. And so now, you know, it's just like, if I go for a walk, it being okay with just going for a walk. Like, I don't have to do, you know, go 110% at everything. You know, making a to-do list, using my Google Calendar on several different Gmail accounts so that I don't miss important events like this talk I'm giving at noon today, or, you know, whatever. These little things that I do now that I may have done had I known all the stuff I was struggling with prior to, or I would have given myself.
It sounds like a big awakening and awareness
Gigantic.
that you had.
Gigantic. It's like when you, it's like, you know, when you have like a little cough, right? And you kind of ignore it's just a little cough. You get over it. But then, like, when you get the cough and you get a little phlegm in it, and then you get a little heavier than this heavy cough, and then you're like, maybe I need to go to the doctor. And the doctor's like, man, you have pneumonia. Now, if you'd got the little cough and saw him earlier, maybe you wouldn't have had to go all the way through the symptoms of pneumonia. But, you know, now you have to kind of deal with deal with it as it comes. And the thing about it is, it's still something that you can live with and work through and see the other side of. So, like, that realization of, oh, this is what I've been fighting with. My time management issues aren't just me being lazy, or you know, my apathy isn't just me being lazy, or you know, it's, no, you have something, your brain works a little differently. So we have to do some things differently so that you can be successful. And once I kind of accepted that reality and realized that, you know, the way my mind works is my greatest gift, you know what I mean? Then I was able to use that as motivation to harness those powers and develop myself in such a way that it's like, you know, Superman and kryptonite, you know what I mean? Like, he's not willingly going to go fly to the green mountain of kryptonite because he's gonna die. He tries to stay away from it, stay near the sun where he gets his strength. Or like Batman's trauma is what makes him Batman. If he didn't experience his parents dying when he was a kid, he wouldn't be Batman. He'd be Bruce Wayne. He'd be something different. So, that's one of the things that I have learned, my ability to, just do certain things. I used to be in entertainment. And so like being able to improvise and things off the fly and different things like that I now do effortlessly. A big part of it is the fact that my mind moves a little differently than other people's. And it's like not a bad thing. You just got to do some stuff differently and know that there's going to be some things you may not ever really do as well as others. But the beauty of life is that you don't do this thing alone, and you put yourself around people who can help shore up some of your areas of growth that allow you to, project yourself at your highest level.
Yeah, you said something when we were speaking before that actually really made me giggle. You said, look what I had already accomplished, and I never knew I was messed up.
Listen, man. I think that was really when it really hit me. I just was kind of sitting around. I was like, man, I got 2 degrees. I got a house on my own. I got, jobs, and I've done this, I've done that. I've been in books. I've done all kinds of things. I'm just like, all of this and more stuff that I forget all the time till somebody reminds me. And I'm like, and I am jacked up like everybody else. So like, I don't view it. I used to kind of like, I think it's something we all kind of deal with at various stages in our life where we don't have the insight into our own, deficiencies for various reasons, and I think that once I was, again, be able to accept, I think acceptance is a really big part of it. Then like, so imagine, it's something that one of my friends said, like two of my friends, one of my friends, said, it's like being in a fight with Floyd Mayweather with one hand tied behind your back. Your chances of winning are slim to none. They were slim to none anyway, but they're even more slim to none if you're sitting there with one of the greatest, or this gentleman behind me, my favorite, you in the ring with these guys and you only got one arm behind your back, or you're in this race and you have like a book bag of like with like 100 pounds in it, and you're running this race as hard as you can, and you're running as hard as everybody else, but you're not going as far or as fast as everybody else because you have more weight on you. And when you take that weight off, it's like, oh, wow, I can really go fast now. And like, that's kind of like the realization, that aha moment, like
empowerment.
I think once you accept that you have flaws, but that you're good anyway. And that goes back to that divinity I talk about. Like, there are things about you that go against that divinity. And my job as a therapist, as a counselor, as a consultant, as just a healer, is to make you aware of when you do things that go against that divinity, that perfection, that rightness. That's my job, to say, hey, that's not right. Not only affirm that divinity within you, but to raise your awareness to that. And sometimes you can't do that by yourself. Sometimes you need another person to raise your awareness when you do things that go against that perfection. Not saying perfection in the sense of you do no wrong, but in the sense of you're whole and you're right as you are. And I think that as I approach life from that perspective, I don't judge people the same way I used to. And I don't judge myself the same way I used to.
Good.
Like, you're just a little off base. We can get you back to this divinity. Some people may take more work than others, but that doesn't mean that it's not there.
Right. So you said you didn't lose by admitting you had a diagnosis.
For sure.
That life got better, actually.
Indeed. And dare I say significantly better, because,
awesome.
I was able to, thank you. I was always able to connect with people, but I always felt like there was this separation between myself and the people who I served at the time who had like severe mental illness and things like that, because maybe I didn't present with psychosis. Maybe I didn't present with these certain, symptoms that I didn't have any experience in, but I have dealt with trauma significantly, and we all have. And I have dealt with depression, and I have dealt with anxiety, and I have dealt with, having a mind that works differently than other people's. And while it might not be to the same extent, it doesn't negate the fact that it's different. And I embrace that, because how can I stand in front of somebody and say, man, you're whole, you're perfect, you're great as you are, and then I go home and I'm doubting myself because I'm different? That's to me, that's counterproductive to what it is that I have been teaching. And that just goes against what I believe. Like, I believe like the biggest part of teaching is modeling for that which you want to see in somebody else. And so, I always go back to, if I was Lamar's therapist, what will Lamarr tell Lamarr? And what plans would I put in place for that person? What would I do for this guy who's coming to me with these particular set of problems? Then I just do that. You know what I'm saying?
Perspective.
100% perspective. And if we go into, cognitive behavioral therapy, and this, which is kind of a thing, or, it's just reframing your perspective, reframing reality to something that is more healthy, and I think that healthy thinking has been one of the biggest benefits that I've gotten from knowing I, had a diagnosis. Like, okay, cool. Now we can do something about it, and versus fighting against a ghost and you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what the real problem is. You just, something that I've come to realize is like working hard at the wrong thing is pretty much the same as not working at all. You know what I'm saying? So like, you can be working hard, and a lot of us do that. But if it's not at the right thing, which goes into, going into business for myself and stuff like that, like I've always worked hard, but am I working hard at the right stuff? And if I'm not, then I have to readjust and be okay with the fact that, I need to do that.
That's awesome. So how and why did you get started in your own business?
Money.
Ain't no shame in that.
No. I mean, money is a byproduct for sure. But I mean, I realized that I wasn't able to make the impact that I wanted to make being where I was. The course of the pandemic has globally, I was going to say another term, but we're in a professional setting. It's been bad for everybody. I was going to say something else, but it's been really bad for all of us. We've lost people, we've lost certain, freedoms we took for granted. We've lost a lot of community and we just lost a lot of stuff. But for those of us who have taken this as an opportunity to learn about ourselves and to identify what we really want out of life, what's really important to us, this has been an opportunity.
Yeah.
And for me, it was an opportunity to engage, learn how to, do what we're doing, talk to people on a platform I had no knowledge of 2 years ago, learn how to figure that out, how to study what other people are doing. Some people who've been in this space for years, and realize that I have a skill set that I've acquired over time that people are willing to listen to. For many years, I kind of downplayed what I knew because it's just work. Oh, this is just what I do. This is not that big of a deal. But there are people who, for all of us, anybody who's listening, anybody who will listen, we all have gifts and talents and skills and abilities that somebody needs. And, it came to me really about a year ago. I was just blindly submitting to speak, at different little organizations, just trying to speak or train or do something within my realm of expertise. And the reason for Public Health Training Center is connected to Emory University out here in Atlanta. Lady reached back and said, hey, yeah, we looking for trainers. We can pay you this. can you do an hour workshop on, self-care? I'm like, sure. And, I knew it was going to be a big deal, but I didn't know how big of a deal it would be. And, so I did it. And again, I didn't think it was anything. I was like, okay, this will be it for me. I'll do this one time and get this little money and I'm on to the next thing. But before, like maybe 2 or 3 days, I had already had my outline set up. I had to do what I was going to do and what I was going to say. And like 2 or 3 days before, and this is part of the difference in my mind, how my mind works, something just hit me and was like, nah, go another way. And I totally changed the whole presentation. And I'm glad I did, because the beauty of this pandemic is that we've been able to get all kinds of information, these webinars and different things like that. I know I'm not the only one who just like signs up for something that looks interesting. You may or may not, show up, but you sign up for it anyway. And so, in doing that, I feel like I didn't want to provide the same sort of information that people were always getting. Go take a breath, go for a walk, eat right, exercise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we all know that. Like, the people who are on this call and who are listening to this, and we're not like people who are not aware of what we need to do. The issue with most of us is how do we do it? How do I start exercise? What about these internal barriers that we have that are keeping us from engaging in activities that will make us better people? And that's the approach I came at it from. And I just got really good feedback, like overwhelmingly positive feedback, that they contacted me like the same day, said, hey, do you want to like do like a workshop on this? And explained it and broke it down. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so, that's kind of what it was. And in that process, I was kind of like, well, this big organization who probably has people with all kinds of credentials and all kinds from all over the country and maybe even the world, and people who just on their campus who are so accomplished and all this other stuff, they decided to pick me, little Lamarr Lewis from Dayton, Ohio, lives in Stone Mountain, Georgia, who's just trying to pay bills. Yeah. They picked me to do a workshop on self-care, be the guy who barely understands what self-care is himself. Wow, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. And so,
and you're so charming. So
I thank you greatly for that. It's one of those things where it's just kind of like, wow, like, and that gave me the confidence to kind of begin to pursue more opportunities. And then in July, end of July, I got COVID. And I was down. It wasn't like one of those mild ones too. And I thought it would be mild because, I'll keep myself in shape and work out and eat right and drink water and all the good stuff you're supposed to do. Man, that thing took me down so bad. And it made me, and my daughter got sick too. So it just made me kind of really reevaluate what was important.
Yeah.
And if people believe in me, I need to believe in myself and believe in my vision and believe in my dream that I can make an impact on this world. And I was already making an impact, but I can expand my impact if I just, bet on myself. I believe the safest bet you'll place is the one you place on yourself. And could potentially be the most lucrative to me. We can bet on our favorite teams, bet on our favorite wrestler, boxer, or MMA fighter or whatever, but the best bet you can place is the bet you place on yourself. And that's just what I did. So that's kind of what sparked it.
So how did it get to the point of going from a side gig to main gig? Just going for it.
I'm trying to think how I want to word this. Basically where I was at, I thoroughly appreciate the experience and the opportunity that they gave me. But at a certain point, like many things in our life, when something is around for a while and it kind of does what it's supposed to do and it doesn't really make a lot of changes in the sense of how like what you expect out of it. If you expect, I expect my car to cut on every time I put the key near the ignition. I just expect that. I expect it to turn on and take me to where I need to go. I expect that. And that's kind of how, the relationship between myself and my previous employer was. And that didn't bother me at a point. Then it got to a point where it did. And, it just, the season had come due. It was just time. The opportunities that I was being presented with as an entrepreneur were becoming too much to do with a full-time job as well. Right. And to be fair, my family history is of people who just kind of eventually realize the best thing to do is to do for self and to try to build what you can on your own so you can pass this to family and provide opportunities. And when I got COVID, what I realized was like, my son's about to go to, he's a senior in high school now. And, I just, when you're in your room alone for 2.5 weeks, you think a lot, especially if you're a person like me who thinks all the time anyway. And it's just kind of like, if something happened to me, I couldn't give him my job. Like it couldn't be like, hey man, I'm on my deathbed. Hey man, here goes this job. Live your life. Like that's just not the reality of it. And one of my friends who used to work with me at this place passed away while he was at work. And then we had to put his job up the next 2 weeks. We had to fill his position. And, I'm still close with his sons and stuff like that. His sons are, grown now, but they were like my son's age then. And, it just made me really think about like, what am I passing down? What am I giving them? What am I leaving them? And so, no long answer to a short question, but a lot of just realizations were happening at the same time in my life that just kind of said, this is time. And the fear you have of not being able to provide or not being able to take care of, or, not having the quality of life you're used to, that's not a factual thought. It's just, fear around a past that you've been through, that maybe your perception of it isn't real. Like just because we think it doesn't make it true. And so, I just kind of was like, no, I can do it. I've been doing it already. I just didn't see it because, especially when you're dealing with side hustles and your main job, you're just looking at money coming in. You're not really looking at how you're scaling it. And, if you're making this much now, if you put this much more time, how much more you like, none of that was really a part of my frame of reference. So, it was just time.
Were there any other challenges that were associated with all of that, getting started and owning your own business?
For sure. Let's see. Structure of the day has been a challenge. When you're used to going into an office, and you're there and you take your lunch at a certain time and, you get off at a certain time and you had to talk to somebody before you can leave. And if you want to go make a run during lunch, you have to, run that through somebody. Like, all these things are within a structure or a system, right? But when you're working for yourself, the system is yours. And so you can find ways to justify certain things that may or may not actually be productive, or conducive to the bottom line, but you do them because you have the time. Like, oh, I can go, to the bank and I'll take myself to lunch and I'll just, I'll go to the gym middle of the day. I'll do this. I'll talk with my friend on the phone, whatever it is you're doing.
So that discipline.
Yeah. And the discipline coupled with the consistency, right? Because what I began to notice, especially in the beginning, because I still had, you get those last few checks from your last job and PTO payouts, all that. So I'm like, things are cool right now. But the other part of it is that I knew every 2 weeks something was coming in my bank account. So I didn't really, worry about certain things because I knew every 2 weeks, if I had nothing else, I knew these 2 weeks out of the month, I'll have enough to cover my bills. Bam.
Yeah.
But when you work for yourself and you work on, contracts and things like that, sometimes stuff doesn't drop when you expect it to drop. And sometimes a deal you think you have set in isn't locked in, or sometimes, you have to do things for free in order to build your brand, build your business, get your name out. And so when you have money coming in for that time, it doesn't matter as much. Like, oh, a day we can do it, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, sure, whatever, who cares? Because you're getting, you have, but when it's like, that hour and a half, 2 hours takes away from the ability to earn some money, and or you don't think about, like, for example, a training. When I would do trainings for my staff, that might take a few hours to come up with the PowerPoints and the slides and the research and how I want to do it. Like the preparing process takes time. But you kind of get paid for that through the salary that you're earning, because that's part of your job description, is just staff development. Mm-hmm. But when that's not part of your, fee, people are paying you just to do the presentation, not necessarily paying you for the prep work and all that kind of stuff. Well, then you're kind of in a dilemma. So these are just different things that, I've had to learn about the structure and the discipline and the consistency. And I would say the other part of it is expecting the unexpected, good and bad. So, for example, I expected to do the talk that you all have heard about face to face. We usually go to St. Simon with the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, and I'll make sure I shout them out for that. And I do, talk there or do a workshop there or whatever. And outside of the fact that St. Simon is the beach and it's nice and it's a pleasant experience, I'm get out of Atlanta, this is a good time. I look forward to it. Well, of course, we talked about this pandemic happening, and that's totally altered the course of our trajectory, and this hasn't been possible. So, they don't pay me to do that. But it's something, because I believe in the mission, I believe in the work, and oftentimes I'll already be there. I would, I don't have no problem doing it. But if I looked at it just as an opportunity to make money, I wouldn't have done it. But in doing that, somebody in Florida was on the call, said, hey, this guy's pretty cool. Let me talk to this guy, see what's going on with him. And now we have that. I've connected to you all through that opportunity. And sometimes, for me, a lot of times, it's not necessarily about the money. It's always about the principle. And so I've had to learn that I have to stay grounded on my principles and my values and what I believe in as a man and as a human, as a person, because if I sway from that just to make some money, that money is fleeting. Yeah. And I believe, and not to get too wonky or out there, but I believe as long as I take care of the people, humanity, if you want to get spiritual, I might say God's people, whatever you want to call it, the people who need me, as long as I take care of them, I believe I'll always be taken care of. And that has not failed me the minute I made that pact with myself, So the hardest part, I think that was a question somebody posted in the chat, is persistently overcoming the fear and the anxiety of the unknown. Well, man, how am I going to pay this bill if this doesn't happen? If I'm going to pay this, if this doesn't happen, how am I going to do this if this doesn't happen? I don't have the business coming in right now. What am I going to do? Like, that's not the time to freeze. That's the time to fight. That's the time to strategize. That's the time to seek counsel. That's the time to get mentorship. That's the time to say, hey, look, this is my struggle right now. How can I figure this out? Because if you spend time ruminating on what's not happening, it's going to continue to not happen. So being able to utilize those problem solving skills, and those critical thinking skills that we've developed over time, and say, hey, if I do lawn care and everybody in my neighborhood has a person who's already doing it, I might need to go to the next neighborhood. I might need to go to the neighborhood after that. I might need to go across town. I might need to go out to the country, wherever you need to do. in order to overcome those barriers. I think the biggest struggle I've had, and I believe is the struggle a lot of entrepreneurs have, is themselves.
Yeah.
Is, saying, hey, like, self-disclosure, like when times get slim, I always know I can get a job. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I jumped out the porch too soon. Maybe I needed to go ahead and get a job and, figure this thing out later. But then that defeats everything I just told you about. You know what I'm saying? Why I left, why I decided what I wanted to do. And it's only been doing it full time a few months. I've been doing this work for years.
Yeah.
So
not standing in your own way.
Exactly.
Believing in yourself. I'm hearing a lot of the belief in yourself and just being optimistic and the networking and relationships,
for sure,
and being able to use that those good relationships that you create to help have exposure. That's
100%. I firmly believe that I tell people this all the time. Like, I'm not a rich man yet, but I'm a billionaire in relationship. Like, I'm rich in relationships. Like, and to me, that's more important than money. And I want to make sure I reiterate that fact. Yeah. Like, we need money, obviously, to sustain ourselves. But I don't want money in the sense of it will have me doing things that go against my beliefs and what I stand on as a man. And I have to look at my, my family in the face. I have to look at my friends in the face. I have to look at myself in the mirror and say that I've been the man I said I was going to be. And that doesn't come without errors. It doesn't come without mistakes. But back to my philosophy of, it's only wins and lessons for me. Like, I don't look at losses as it. Yes, you can lose. I think I told you when we spoke before, I coach basketball. So you can lose a game. You can lose a match. You can lose a race. You can lose whatever. I've lost before, but I'm not a loser. I don't accept defeat as that's it. Like, no, we lost. What can we do better to improve?
Right.
And sometimes the best improvement is just accepting the fact you lost. Like, well, they just was better and there was nothing more I could do. It's like that sometimes. There are things that,
like you said, doing the best you can. And that's all you can ask of yourself.
And something one of my professors said that sticks with me, and I tell a lot of the clients stuff I work with, like, most people are doing the best they can with what they have on any given day. And when I look at people like that, it made me realize that for most of us, like what really all of us in a sense, what you're receiving from a person is probably the best they have.
Yeah.
And it might not be enough for you. And that's okay. Being okay with the fact that it's not enough, but accepting the fact that this is what this person has. And I think that for me, again, always going back to, am I the best representation of the principles I espouse to other people? Am I standing on the principles that I've been raised by and I've developed and learned over time that life has shown me? Am I the same? Do I stand on that, or do I waver when difficult times come? And I can't. It's just not how I'm built. I'm not raised that. My bloodline's not like that. I'm just not raised that way. Where I'm from, I'm just not like that. If I take a L, ooh, you got me. That was a good punch. Yeah, that was good. Ha ha ha. You won't get me again. Like, that's just kind of how I move. And I think that to be an entrepreneur, you have to have resilience. And that's a phrase of mine that I just, you have to be able to bounce back, because you're going to take losses. You're going to have periods of downtime where stuff's just not floating how you want it to float. But that doesn't mean that you quit, Right. And I think that belief in myself and belief in the fact that my experiences have shown me time and time again, I always spend time going back and reflecting on what I've been through and what I've overcome to remind me that this obstacle here is just another thing to get over. When the conversation I had with the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, that was the concept. It was called Climb, confronting limiting internal mindsets and beliefs. And the thing about climbing a mountain is that you can climb a mountain and then the clouds dissipate and there's more mountain to climb. Like, there's always going to be something to overcome.
Yeah.
And we often think it's something like in boxing, it's called admiring your work. Because after you throw a good punch, you look at it like, yeah, ooh, that was good. No, if he's not knocked out, he's going to keep fighting back. So you can't just sit there and look at what you did great. It's good to appreciate your accomplishments, but you can't allow your accomplishments to make you stagnant and no longer ready to grow. And I think a big part of also entrepreneurship is constant, continual learning. I'm always trying to learn and improve in my space so that I'm able to be better at what I do for my clients, whether that be an organization, whether that be a client I'm seeing one-on-one or whatever the case may be. Like all of that, I have to continue to improve myself so I can improve my product, because I am my product. At some point, I would love for Lewis Family Consulting to be a conglomerate where consultants in public health sector come and we give them work. And we just, it becomes a big deal. That's the big goal. But if it's not, then I can be the biggest consultant that I could be, and and in that lane, be the biggest servant leader I can be, and just help people grow and to be their best selves, be their best selves.
That's awesome. So I want to make sure I leave some time for people to ask questions and engage in dialogue. But in wrapping up, do you have any advice that maybe you'd give your former self, or a word of encouragement to others?
Man. So my friend Glenn, the one I told you about who passed, would always say, there's a lot of love in no. And as an advice to myself, way back when, it's okay to say no, right? It's okay to not accept every opportunity, especially if you're not going to be able to perform that duty at your best. Yeah. Oftentimes we get into hustle mode or scramble mode, and we're just trying to make things happen, and we just say yes to everything. But there's a lot of love in those. Sometimes you say, hey, look, I can't take this on right now because I can't effectively do this task and do it the right way. So I'm gonna have to step away from this opportunity, but I appreciate it. That goes a lot further than saying, yeah, I can do it. Yeah. And mucking something up. And now your name is bad because you didn't perform up to your capability. The other piece of advice I think I would give is, when you chase money, you chase something that is fleeting. Chase success, your interpretation of it. And when I mean success, I mean your internal success. Chase improving who you are, and the other benefits come, in my experience. When I focus on myself and improve myself and deal with myself, I'm able to get more opportunities. When I spend time pointing at other people, I tend to fail. So last thing is just worry about what you can control. Control the controllables. And the only thing we can control, and this is the hardest fact of life. I think if I learned this as a young man, my life would be in a whole different trajectory, but I can't go back. But if I could, I would say, ask yourself this question, young man: is this in my control or is it not? If it's in my control, do something about it. If it's not, leave it alone. And that's the easiest way to make it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lamarr. I am going to